Joining us now is Congressman Adam Schiff. He is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Sir, thank you for joining us on short notice tonight. Thanks. I really appreciate it.
It's good to be with you.
Let me just start by getting your reaction to this news. There had been a lot of chatter and a lot of threats from the president that he might do something like this. So I know it doesn't come as a complete surprise. But now that it's happened, what's your reaction?
Well, another, appalling attack on the rule of law. There are two systems of justice now in America, one for criminal friends of the president, like Michael Flynn and now Roger Stone, and one for everybody else. It wasn't enough when the president intervened and Bill Barr intervened to recommend a shorter sentence for Donald Trump. They now had to take action. The president had to take action to make that sentence go away completely. Of course, this is part of the broad pattern of the president rewarding his friends and potentially the more serious shoe to fall, punishing his enemies. I think you were exactly right, Rachel, earlier in the show when you talked about how, essentially the president is using, through Bill Barr, the shield right now to protect those who are lying for him and covering up for him. But what may be more dangerous is what's to come, and that is Bill Barr using the sword to investigate and prosecute the president's enemies. That's another even more serious attack on the rule of law. And so what's to come may be worse than what we're seeing today, but what we're seeing today is an appalling overture to people, essentially from the president saying, if you lie for me, you cover up for me, I will reward you. On the other hand, if you're a rat and you cooperate, then like a mafia boss, I will come after you. And it's a sad day in America when our democracy is reduced to this.
Some of this involves you directly in your committee. One of the felonies that Roger Stone was charged with was lying to your committee. He was convicted on all counts. Now that his sentence is commuted, despite that conviction, is there anything that your committee can do or would want to do with regard to Stone and his case, given what he did to the function of Congress and its investigating role?
I don't know that there's anything more that the Congress can do vis-a-vis Roger Stone. Now, Roger Stone may have state law problems. He won't have them arising, I think, from his direct testimony to Congress. But, what we can do, I think, when this president is gone, is so we can enact a whole series of what I'm calling our post-Watergate reforms, where we try to attack these abuses of the pardon power or the power to commute sentence. I introduced a bill, for example, that would require in a case like this, where the president is a witness, subject or target of an investigation, and takes action to pardon or commute someone, that the complete investigative files are turned over to Congress, so that Congress can determine whether this is yet another act of obstruction of justice. So there are remedies, but it's hard to see what remedy we can use now beyond the ultimate remedy in November when we get to vote these bums out of office.
Let me just ask you about what we started with this hour, and you mentioned it a moment ago, the continuing and apparently sort of systematically designed actions of William Barr to undermine or, in fact, end the independence of important federal prosecutors' offices around the country, to directly intervene and take over criminal investigations and criminal prosecutions involving people and interests related to the president, and, in fact, to command that there be criminal investigations of the president's political enemies, including people who had the temerity to investigate potential foreign interference in trying to get him elected. I know that the Judiciary Committee, for example, has had a heck of a time even getting William Barr to agree to come sit down in a chair in Congress and answer questions. But as Barr gets more and more aggressive with this, he's now taken out the U.S. attorney in D.C., in SDNY, in EDNY. He's installed his own people in all of those offices. There's incredibly detailed reporting and whistleblower testimony about the way that he has undone things to benefit the president within the criminal law. Does that just end at the election? Or is there some remedy? Is there some accountability, even in the long run, in terms of what Barr is doing here? Because his actions are you know, I'm not going to say they're existentially challenging to the republic that we are, but they're close.
Well, they are doing grave and long-term damage, certainly to our democracy, our rule of law, the reputation and the reality of the independence of the Justice Department. I think what we can do now until November is shed light on these malevolent actions, these destructive actions, by holding hearings, by bringing these witnesses in, by shedding light. And frankly, there are, in addition to all these nightmare stories, there are some heroes like those that are coming before Congress to expose in whistleblower fashion these acts of attack on the rule of law. I'll also, and this is also, something within the last 24 to 48 hours, but Judge Sullivan taking the action to ask for a full panel review of the decision by the Court of Appeals to force him to dismiss the case against Michael Flynn. That's an act of real bravery by that district court judge. Berman's act of defiance, the fact that Strauss is now acting in the capacity of acting U.S. Attorney in New York. There are some stories of great heroism right now, and that is what I think is keeping the wheels on the cart. But exposure now, in terms of repercussions later, we need to pass reforms to make it much more difficult for a future craven president and craven attorney general to get away with this. But there may be, criminal law accountability. For example, the president as individual one in that celebrated case in the Southern District of New York, where he was directing and coordinating this campaign fraud scheme. There is no shield to protect Donald Trump when he leaves office. What Barr is doing may not be criminal. It may just be deeply damaging to our democracy. And I don't know whether there's a remedy for Bill Barr after this administration is over, except the stigma of history, and that will be a severe judgment.
House Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff, thank you again for joining us on such short notice, sir, and for making that point, actually, about